Well, Torah fans, I have promised you a special journey and adventure down into the rainforest of Costa Rica. We're going to be visiting by way of Skype Steve Moutria. Steve is the director of Torah Family Ministries, a former pastor with both the Pentecostal church world and also a Baptist and non-denominational. He's had quite a journey in life, and now all the way from Lake Arnall, right at the base of the smoking volcano, Steve Moutria. Steve, good to have you with us.
Thank you, Michael. It's a joy to be with you.
Steve, tell us a little bit about your background. You've had an entire lifetime in really the Christian church, starting out, as I understand, like 4 years old, and you started to have an experiential awakening while you were in high school. Tell us a little bit about your background, where you came from, and what brought you into the Hebrew roots of the faith.
Yeah, I was basically, like you said, born and raised in church. And when I was 4 years old, that's when we transitioned over from the United Pentecostal Church to Assembly of God. And then I grew up there all my life for the next 17 years. And it was, you go through your ins and outs of growing up, and you get serious, you don't get serious. But I think it was my sophomore year was when I really got serious with wanting to know God, wanting to know what He has for my life, what I'm supposed to do in life, all those questions that a teenager will have. And that's when I really got serious, and I really got heavy into the, prophecy stuff. That's when it was my gig for back then, especially.
Mm-hmm.
And I started growing. And from there, I became a Sunday school teacher, growing in the church. I became a Royal Ranger leader in the Assembly of God Church, and also started working with youth and with the youth, become a youth leader. And it was from there was when I actually became a youth pastor at a small non-denominational church. And we grew. I started out with 3 children in our youth group. The church was only 45 people. And within 5 years, the church grew to about 200, but the youth group grew to over 50. And so the youth group really grew. And we had a rockin' youth band. The father was doing lots of cool things then. And he always does, you know. But go ahead. Would you want to say something?
You're, as far as praise and worship leader, you're a musician as well. So that fit in with getting the youth involved in that then.
That is correct. We started a youth band, and man, we had a great youth band. It was we had two. I played piano. I had a keyboard behind me. Had a guitar player, electric guitar player, a drummer, bass player. We had 5 backup vocalists. I even had a violin, and a flute. It's like I'm going, man. We just had it all. For every song, thing would be freaking out great. But from there, the father led me to leave there after 5 years, and I started doing youth evangelism and traveling to churches as well. And then I went on to be a pastor of a small church. And from there, after 2 years being there, grew a lot, learned a lot. I went to doing traveling evangelism again, and then became a part of a very large Baptist church. And at that church, that's
From
funny.
Pentecostal to Baptist. Now, this is the world I grew up with. I always was trained that the Pentecostals were way out to lunch, but you went from Pentecostal to Baptist,
Yeah.
and so this is interesting step in the journey. Usually, it goes the other way. Baptist, we learn about the Bible, but then we know nothing about the Spirit, and so we get led into the things of the Spirit, and so a lot of Baptists end up in Pentecostal Assembly of God congregations. You went the other way.
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of funny. Well, I once heard it said, once a Pentecostal, always a Pentecostal, and that kind of stuck with me because at the Baptist church, I was actually called the Baptist-costal. And so, but there are great people in that church. And to this day, there are great people, and I love them dearly. And in the Baptist church, I filled in as a youth pastor for them. And this is a very large church. It ended up growing to over 1,500. And so I did their youth. I actually started their children's ministry. And then I was led into doing their video work, post editing, and live of all of the live services. And And that's where I started getting more into the professional video world. One of my bosses had seen my work there at the church and said, "Hey, I like your stuff. Can you help out?" I did some small work for them. And so my journey has been really crazy. I mean, and while I was at the Baptist church, that's when we actually started our traveling comedy team. Continued it, I should say. Actually started it when
A
I was,
traveling comedy team.
yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got to tell us, what does that mean? What does that mean in the Christian world, traveling comedy team?
Exactly.
Obviously,
Well,
this is not the Def Comedy Jam.
yeah, correct. Basically, what we did, I hate to say it this way, but there's no other way to really saying it, was really virtually a Christian version of Saturday Night Live. And what we did, we would travel to youth groups, youth conventions, youth camps especially, and we would perform this whole thing. It was really kind of cool because it always opened up with me being driven in the church on a Harley Davidson motorcycle. And I mean, literally, they drive me into the church, took me off at the front, and then all this stuff is going on. We had a little light show going on with it. But the whole element was where you see a skit and then a video, a skit and a video. And the videos were just basically skits, which allowed us to set the stage up for the next live skit. But the whole time of doing this, you never once heard the name of Jesus, Yeshua, or God or anything. It was this clean, straight comedy, fun, clean comedy. But then at the end, I would come out and give a small message, very small, 10-minute max. And what I did, I referred back to every single skit and video that you just watched. And as I did, you would, you think of it again and you'd start laughing, of course. But then I showed how every single skit and video was actually a modern day parable of the gospel. And then, so while you're laughing and bringing it back to laughing and remembering the skit you just watched, I present you with the gospel right in front of it. And it caught everybody off guard. And we had some great times. And a lot of people came to knowing Yahweh at that time. And it was, in fact, I was just talking to a brother of mine, a younger brother, and he's Torah. And I said, man, if Yeshua tarries, I would love to get that started again because it was just a great ministry. And yeah, it was fun.
Now you mentioned, Steve, that he's into Torah. For some of our viewers out there, this is a new phrase. Not realizing, we're referring to, first of all, the 5 books of Moses, but it literally means the instructions. And
Amen.
you went from going to church, Sunday school, Royal Rangers, and I know what that means. It means 5, 6 meetings a week in church. You spend your whole life there, but something changed, something shifted for you. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that was a story in itself. I tell you, I was doing video work one day in the back of the church, and then a friend of mine came to me after service. Says, "Hey, I got some videos for you to watch." So I said, "Okay, I'll check them out." And they're all about this thing called Torah, the law. It's still alive for today. I'm going, what in the world, And so I watched them, and as I watched them, I was getting really challenged. And I'm saying, I can't be right. And I'm thinking of this, Galatians here, Colossians here, all this stuff is coming to my mind,
Mm-hmm.
And then as I started, realizing he had some things I still couldn't answer. And as I started digging, I'm going, okay, well, wait a second here. This is making sense. And it got to the point where when I would drive to work, I'm just struggling and I'm fighting God. And because I'm seeing my side and I'm seeing their side. And I'm a black and white kind of guy. I just, there's no gray for me. It's either wrong or it's right. It's this or it's that. It's one or the other. And that's just how I've been brought up, I guess. This is my makeup. But I remember coming home from work one day. My wife was in the kitchen. I walked to the door, and she knew that I had been going through this struggle. And I told her, I said, I'm going straight to the room. I don't want none of the children bothering me. And she knew that I was struggling.
Wow. Yeah.
I walked in my room, threw my Bible on the bed. I said, okay, God, I've had it. I know this sounds wrong. People say I was wrong, but I'm just, when you're frustrated, you don't know who you're praying to. You don't know if the word says this or if the word says that.
Yeah.
And I told God, I said, I give. I said, I'm not going to talk to you. What can I do? I don't know who I'm even praying to anymore. Are you this God or are you that God? And that was it was a hard night. Okay, it was a hard night for me. The next morning, I'm driving to work, driving into St. Louis. I'm on Highway 55, just getting off of Highway 111. And it was like something just clicked. I don't know how else to say it, but immediately, and I was praying out of frustration, and then it's like a light just came on. I'm going, wait a second. If that means this, then that means this. If that means that, well, then that means this. And everything just flooded. It just clicked. And that day was the best day of my life. It's like I was born again, because it all made sense. I could answer scriptures for the first time ever that I couldn't answer before. It was just
Oh,
great.
Steve, this is beautiful. Our time has run out, but I want to have you back because I want to explore this a little bit. Because what happened to you was the very thing that when Yeshua, after the resurrection, met with his disciples, and it says that he opened their understanding. In the
Yes.
Greek, it's the word sunesis. It's in Greek literature, it's described as the point at which two rivers come together and form a mighty stream, and that is what happened. You prayed, and your whole life came together in a new way into the Monongahela and Allegheny River coming together to form the Ohio, changed your life. This is what people are experiencing all over the world. And ladies and gentlemen, you're hearing it right from this man's his whole life in the Christian world, and by diligent prayer and by divine intervention in his life, that's what turned it around. Steve, you got to come back with us. I want you here next week, okay? I want you to
Amen.
tell more of this story. Ladies and gentlemen, we're out of time right now, but we'll be back right after this word for our sponsors, which are you out there. You're the ones that stand with us. Thank you.